Welcome. Thank you so much for watching, for your commitment to public education in Duval County. My name is Laura Alrutz, and I'm the Senior Manager of Policy and Advocacy for the Jacksonville Public Education Fund. I'm pleased to be coming to you live with Lori Hershey, the Chair of the Duval County School Board, to talk about one of the biggest education issues we're facing, our aging school buildings and how we can improve them. I want to thank Chairwoman Hershey for being here today. At JPEF, we work to inform the community about our public schools, and so we're going to ask Chairwoman Hershey some questions over the next half hour about this issue and how community members like yourself can get involved and make your voices heard. If you have a question, we welcome you to type it in the comments, and please share this video so others can join in this important conversation. So Chairwoman Hershey, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for giving us this opportunity.
Absolutely. So to start us off, tell us a bit about the state of our buildings in Duval County.
You know, it's interesting. We went back through some minutes, and in 2002, a board then began the conversation of what are we going to do about our schools and facilities. So this conversation has been taking place for a long time by multiple boards. We are at a point not only here in Jacksonville but across the country of having aging infrastructure in all of our public schools. As you've probably heard Dr. Green say, we have the oldest schools in the state of Florida, and we have some infrastructure needs that are serious, and we're at a critical point that we can no longer consider ourselves to be a good steward by kicking the can down the road any further.
Absolutely. And how did we get to this place after so many decades where our school buildings need this amount of work done to them?
Well, it happened slowly over time. As we began to lose capital dollars, there became less dollars available for repair. You know, it's interesting to look too. There are other counties around us that have both impact fees as well as have passed maybe a millage rate increase to help with operational cost, or have passed a half-penny sales tax to pay for their infrastructure. So I think for Duval County, two things. One is that maybe we were hoping for better days, and the other is I think there has to be an alignment with both a superintendent and a school board who dare to take a risk and demonstrate some sheer political will to move forward with tackling an issue like this.
Of course. So from what I hear you say, Duval County is not the only school district in the state facing buildings that are old, not as old as ours,
Right.
but old. So we're not unique in this situation right now.
Right, and we're not unique in the need for more dollars to address facility needs. What has happened since about 2010, as the millage rate has been rolled back, as we've began to share PICO dollars with charter schools, and now charter schools get all PICO dollars. As those kinds of issues have come up in Tallahassee and we've had more sharing of dollars, it's just been a slow peeling away of dollars that would be available to help with schools. And that's not just in Duval County, but it's across the state of Florida.
And so other school districts, to combat that significant decreasing of funds, have implemented sales or put tax referendums for sales tax or property taxes, impact fees. Can you tell us a little bit what those options are and why Duval County Public Schools is going for the half-penny sales tax instead?
Sure. The idea of an impact fee is something that is paid by developers when new communities are built. For example, in St. Johns County, when a new community is built, there is land set aside, and the developer pays for to help for new schools. Jacksonville never pursued that. I don't know why. That would have been something that would have been taken up by the city council years ago. Instead, Duval County landed with something called concurrency, which is a unique formula which almost always guarantees there are seats available in the district adjacent to where the growth is taking place, unlike impact fees that deal with the specific growth in a specific area for new residents. Clay County has impact fees. St. Johns County has impact fees, just to name some neighboring counties. That isn't something we never pursued. It's my understanding, however, at this particular point, that we really missed our opportunity. Like that ship has sailed for us. If we had done it 10 or 20 years ago, it would have been great. But at this particular point, impact fees, and for what I understand with projects being on the books, by the time we really implemented it, it's projected that Duval County would be built out. So impact fees are, not that they wouldn't be beneficial, we've just really missed that opportunity for all of our growth. The millage rate increase is something that Clay County has done. They did that to help pay for security and other operational needs, but increasing a millage rate can only pay for operational expenses. The half-penny sales tax, that referendum that other districts throughout the state, Orange County, Hillsborough, have already passed, just to name a couple, as well as St. Johns County, goes specifically for capital needs.
And it was last year when several of the school districts across the state had those referendums?
Correct.
And were they successful?
Yes. In fact, I believe it was Santa Rosa just had a sales tax vote, and it passed, and they used the mail-in, a vote by mail, and that passed. And that is also an option now, and it's something that the school board has said for a special election that we would be open to and receptive to. Duval County's never done a vote by mail ballot, but it is my understanding that a ballot would go out to all registered voters, and then they would have to be sent back in. But that did pass in Santa Rosa recently.
What are the pros of a mail-in ballot election?
Well, it's half the cost. It would cost over $700,000 versus the $1.4 million to hold a special election if that was something the city council decided to go with. And if you think about it, the ballot goes to every single voter. It's just a matter of returning the ballot.
Sure.
Versus in an election, people have to make a little bit more effort to get out to the polls and vote. So there's a chance that you could increase the turnout in a special election by a mail-in ballot.
Makes perfect sense. So, given all that in the history, and thank you for explaining that, what is DCPS proposing to address our aging buildings here in the district?
Well, there are a couple of things. This is a comprehensive plan. In the past, there has been attempts by the school board to deal with maybe different parts of the district. For example, about 10 years ago, there were some new schools built in District 7, Atlantic Coast, and Twin Lakes Middle. Atlantic Coast was built, and it's been about 20 years since Twin Lakes Elementary and Middle School.
Twin Lakes Middle.
Is that where? That's where you went.
Middle school there is brand new.
So it's been a while, and we've also done some consolidation of schools in the past, but this is a comprehensive approach. And this approach touches all schools because we have facilities backlog that need to be addressed, which if left unaddressed over the next 5 years will increase to $1 billion in need of repairs in itself. This plan literally closes about 20 schools and merges some of the smaller schools together to create new schools. It also, you see a couple of new schools being built. One currently in the plan is a new K-8 in District 6, which is on the west side, and the other would be in District 7 between Nocatee and Atlantic Coast area, which would be a K-8. So those would be the only two new schools coming on board. A lot of the other repairs or improvements that would be made is some of the schools like Westside High, for example, would be torn down and rebuilt just because of aging infrastructure there. Because there is a point at which a school it's cheaper to rebuild it than it is to repair it.
Sure.
A lot of other schools would have major renovations done, but those are just the highlights.
From the master plan, is this the
Yes.
plan that Dr. Green introduced Tuesday at the school board workshop?
Yes.
The final version.
Right. Well, this is her proposal.
Proposal.
And we have a meeting coming up Wednesday, agenda review, which for our meeting in July. So there will also be continued discussion about her proposed master plan then. There might still be some tweaks and changes. I don't anticipate anything major. Maybe some minor changes. And then we are maybe looking at having another meeting the last week in June to finalize the plan so that we can vote on it in July.
In these meetings, the workshops, and of course the July school board meeting are open to the public.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. And I think if there's people have more questions about the facilities plan itself, it's available at our duvalschools.org.
Correct.
Wonderful. Great. So we've heard a lot about traditional public schools, charter schools. It seems to be part of the narrative. From our research, we see about 89% of students are in traditional public schools here in Duval County, and 11% are in charter schools. And of course, over the past few years, that charter school enrollment has been steadily increasing. How does the master plan, the facilities plan, address these recent enrollment trends?
That's a really good question. So before the master plan was even crafted, one of the things we did was a student projection or projected student enrollment. And what that showed is an anticipation that our student enrollment would stay level, which is why you don't see an increase in schools built other than the 2 new schools that I mentioned, but also a continued growth in charter schools. And so I believe that the plan really does recognize future growth for charter schools. And I think that we will probably see more charter schools coming into Jacksonville. When I was at a conference earlier this year, the Council of Great City Schools, I was talking to the chair in Hillsborough County, and they have a lot of charter schools. We have about 40 now, and they have more than we do. And I want to say Miami-Dade has well over 100 charter schools. So we are a city of choice and certainly a state of choice. So I expect that we're going to continue to see growth in that area.
So going back a little bit to the referendum, the facilities plan, it seems like there's some confusion out there about what's being decided by whom, whether it's the superintendent, the school board, now the city council, and the voters. So with the facilities plan and in the proposed sales tax, who are the decision makers for each of those? I heard you say Dr. Green has made her proposal for the facilities plan. How does that
So
work
Dr.
together with
Green
the
makes recommendation to the
referendum?
board and the board votes. So that final decision lays with the board. When it comes to the master plan, she made some adjustments. I think there was about a $400 million decrease in the cost, if I remember correctly, from her proposal. So the board will make the decision, and that and we have the opportunity to make some changes or recommended changes to her proposal. We also did the resolution that was sent over to City Council asking for an opportunity for voters to vote on whether or not to approve a half-penny sales tax. And, it just seems like an American right to have voters weigh in and give their opinion. There's always 2 sides. I'm sure that not everybody is all in and sees the need as much as I do, or members of the school board, and they have a right to that view. But by the same token, as we've had this conversation that has been much needed in our community, I think that there's a groundswelling of support and recognition for the need. I think a lot of people didn't realize the money that we don't get to help care for our schools. I think a lot of people think we already have impact fees and we don't. And so I just think that our ask really from the school board to the city council is, will you put it on the ballot? There's a state statute that says that county commissions, which would be like our city council, shall put it on the ballot. We had a opinion from the Office of General Counsel that said shall means may and can determine when. So our situation is a little different. So other school boards are able to send a resolution over to their county commission and it's put on the ballot really without question. It's a little different here in Jacksonville. Sometimes I think it's harder here with consolidated government. It's just a different governmental body that works a little differently than everybody else, so it's kind of hard to compare it to other counties. So we sent it over, and now it squarely rests on the shoulders of the city council to determine when the date will be. And we sent it over from the school board building over to City Hall, knowing full well that they had an opportunity to change the date to 2020 if they desired. But really our ask of the city council is to let the voters in Jacksonville decide on whether or not to pass the referendum.
Great. So speaking of that, how can people then who aren't on the school board and aren't on city council, the community, how can they get involved and make their voices heard? We talked a little bit about coming to a school board workshop or maybe even contacting their school board representative directly, coming to the July school board meeting. What about with city council? What can they do if they want to share their perspective and thoughts on this issue?
Well, tentatively, as right now scheduled for Tuesday morning is a finance meeting at 9 o'clock, followed by Rules Committee at 1. It's my understanding that that might change until that Friday of next week.
Okay.
I'm not sure what that date is, but it might be,
21st?
yeah. So it might be next Friday morning, so we have to keep an eye on that.
Okay.
But if people support the opportunity for the public to weigh in, right now it's really contacting city council members. And I believe on our website we have a link of city council members. Certainly you can go to the City of Jacksonville page and it gives a list of city council members, and email city council members. Show up Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock for finance or at 1 o'clock for rules, and then it's supposed to be before the final vote by the city council on June 25th.
Okay, so a week from next Tuesday.
Yes.
And that's an evening meeting, 6 o'clock?
Right.
Okay, right. And they can also, community members can also go on the City of Jacksonville website to see updates to any meeting times.
Right.
The agenda is posted there. Great. I know people are looking forward to getting in the conversation.
I've been really impressed with the public input. I've been amazed that it's something that everybody's talking about, and I think if nothing else, writing the resolution and sending it over to City Hall opened a much needed conversation. I don't think as a community we often really talk about how best to care for our schools. And how to be better stewards of our schools. And so this has been a really good conversation, and actually to see people say, well, nobody likes a tax increase, but we need to do this because it's best for our children. I think there's a real economic opportunity here for our city as well. But, you know, when you look at schools that are in need of repair versus schools that it's a new building, I think that that's just a better face for our city. I think there are a lot of benefits for our city, and I would certainly like to think that our chamber and our city council could get excited about the future of our public schools.
Yeah, absolutely, and the impact on our community and city at large. And correct me if I'm wrong, if the sales tax passed, it would be about $6 or $7 for an average family a month?
That's what I've been told.
Okay.
Yes.
So we're hearing,
Yeah,
hearing the
that's,
same
that's
thing.
what I've been told. I don't know who figured that out or how that math has worked out, but that's what I've been told, yes.
Great. So thank you so much for providing that helpful background. I think it really grounds us in the situation that we're in right now. I'd love to turn to a few questions that we've heard from our community members online. And you touched on a couple of them, but how can taxpayers know that the school board and the district at large is going to spend the money as planned in the facilities plan?
Well, certainly accountability is everything, right? If you go for this referendum and it passes, then certainly the public will hold the school board accountable. So we will be creating a citizens advisory committee. And we don't have all the details for that yet because it's got to get on the ballot and it's got to pass first, right? And what that Citizens Advisory Committee will do is they will be responsible for overseeing the dollars that come in and making sure the projects are done. So the next steps after we approve the master plan is then to identify what happens in the first 5 years, what happens in the first 10 years. So something like some of the facilities repairs, let's say roofs or air conditioning, those facility needs will be addressed. It's the bigger ones. Which schools get built first, rebuilt first? Which schools are consolidated and made new? And so those conversations will take place within by each individual board member will help identify the priority for their district.
And is there an opportunity for community participation in meeting with their school board member to help determine what that might look like?
I think that that would be very wise. That's what I intend to do for my district. Once it's passed and as we, move towards, or maybe even after we know we have a date, as we move towards, what does it look like? What would our top 5 or top 10 for the district be? I think that the more we engage our community and have conversation, the better.
That's fantastic. And I recall from seeing the plan that it does, at least for the initial 5 years, already articulates a plan for how the first set of money will be spent per district.
So once the referendum is passed, we would be in a position then to go out for a bond.
Mm-hmm.
And with that bond, then that would give us money to begin a big part of the plan and to tackle a lot of it. And so
So we see some immediate
results because of the bond.
I see.
Because the money, we would not be able to accomplish a lot as the money came in a little bit at a time, but if we got the bond, we could accomplish a lot and then pay that bond down over
Using
time.
the referendum as collateral.
Money. Yes.
Great. And speaking of, so this is a 15-year plan. After that 15 years, what could be an additional step?
Well, after 15 years, hopefully all the schools are great. All the facility needs are taken care of. And, there might, in 15 years, be, the board might have to look at how do we continue to care for our schools. But hopefully we've gotten things fixed by then so that we don't have the backlog that we have now. We're in a different place. It would be my hope that we would be on track then to be able to take the dollars that we do have to maintain the schools.
And speaking of backlog, how much approximately does it cost a district per month, say, to address the current needs of the school
So right
buildings?
now we are spending $500,000 a month in maintenance. So for the board to ask for a special election when it might cost us $700,000 or $750,000, when you compare that to $500,000, you can see why we think that it would be worth it and a good use of dollars. Of course, the city council has the right by general counsel now, as they have ruled, to say, well, you can do it in 2020, but that's another year where we're spending, again, taxpayer money.
$6 million.
$6 million. And it's almost like throwing good money after bad. It's like repairing that used car that you have instead of buying a new one. But we will certainly our goal is to get it on the ballot. So if the city council moves it to 2020, while that's not our preference, we would at least like the voters to be able to weigh in.
And revenue from this tax referendum, would it be shared with charter schools?
So right now, the way we've structured the resolution is that charter schools would be eligible for some dollars, but keep in mind, when a charter school is built, the state, they get about $25 million from the state to help with their building, and so their buildings are built new. And we don't have too many charter schools that are old. But to answer your question, charter schools would have access to the funds and would be able to qualify and get funds for facility needs.
Well, those are all the questions I have. Thank you so much. That was so informational. Thank you so much for watching and for your interest in public education. If you have any questions that we didn't cover, please leave those in the comments. We will do our absolute best to respond. And I want to thank Chairwoman Hershey for being here with us today. We, like I said, really enjoyed it. I think that this is such an important conversation and great to get the facts out there to our viewers. So thank you so much for your time and service to our students here in Duval County.
Well, thank you. And thank you for helping us get the message right.